The head of the FBI Agents Association is urging Congress to protect nearly 1,000 federal agents against potential termination by the Trump administration. The president of the FBI AA warned Congress, quote, displacing these rank-and-file public servants would create a gap in the FBI workforce that could be devastating to the FBI's mission, end quote. The letter is in response to a White House memo that went out on President Trump's first day in office. It mandated federal agencies to identify and assess the retention of all employees on probationary periods as part of efforts to overhaul government. For the FBI, that includes every active duty agent in the first 2 years after their graduation from the academy. The letter comes 1 week after the FBI Agents Association expressed concerns about possible retaliation against Justice Department employees who worked on cases connected to January 6th. Thomas Dupree joins me now. He's a former U.S. Deputy Assistant Attorney General. Thank you for being here. You know, while the White House memo does not automatically mean those FBI agents will be fired, there is a concern among some officials connected to FBI and DOJ about mass firings. Can you help us understand what is within the president's power when it comes to firing and hiring employees, particularly within the Justice Department?
Sure. Look, the president has fairly broad authority. It's subject to the civil service laws, of course, but nonetheless, he's the head of the executive branch and so does have fairly considerable authority about who is retained within his administration. But at the same time, I think the danger here is fairly obvious, at least from my perspective, is that if you wind up firing thousands of FBI agents, who is going to be performing the agency's mission? Who is going to be enforcing the laws of the United States? Who is going to be carrying out counter-terrorist operations? Who's going to be busting up drug cartels? The FBI does a lot of day-to-day bread and butter work that many Americans have no idea they're out doing. They're working in the shadows. They're investigating crimes. They're bringing people to justice. And if you go in and you fire thousands of these on-the-street agents, you're at least creating the potential that a lot of this crime will go unpunished and possibly lead to even more crime.
I want to ask you about a major development that we had about these federal workers' buyouts. It's sort of a fork in the road is what it was called to these employees, saying essentially, we're going to pay you through September. You don't have to come back to work. This is for people who are remote, who don't want to come back into the office. And we've just learned that a federal judge has allowed this deferred resignation program to proceed, saying the unions lack standing to challenge the directive. So the judge said, and I'm going to read some quotes here, that the unions do not have the required direct stake in the fork directive, but are challenging a policy that affects others, specifically executive branch employees. And he added that the court lacks subject matter jurisdiction to consider the plaintiff's pleaded claims, saying disputes must first be administratively exhausted before the employing agency and the relevant administrative review board. So translate that for us if you can. And how do you see this impacting federal agencies?
Sure. Look, I'll do my best. The legal issues here are twofold. Number one is the judge is saying that the people affected have to what's called exhaust their administrative remedies, which means that they have to try to seek relief or they have to resolve any complaints they have with the agency itself before they can take a claim into federal court. The point about standing is basically the question that courts always ask, which is to say, does the plaintiff in this case actually have a meaningful stake in the dispute? Does he have a dog in the fight? And in this case, the judge basically said, no, the unions don't have standing. They're not directly affected by this, but presumably individual employees would.
Okay.
But putting the legal issues aside, I think the significance here is that, at least for now, it does clear the way for people to accept what Elon Musk described as a fork in the road. And if they want to take the money, work for several more months, and then take that early retirement payment, that door, at least for now, is open to them.
Do you see, though, employees potentially bringing up the suit if the unions can't?
I do. Look, there are obviously thousands of employees who are affected or at least potentially affected by this. And I could also see employees saying, well, this sounds like a pretty good deal, but I want some assurance that that money is going to be there if and when I retire 9 months from now or a year from now. And in order to get that confidence, I want a judge to tell me that, yes, this is a legitimate deal. That money will be there when I retire. So I suspect this is probably the beginning of the litigation rather than the end of it.
Not the end. Okay, Tom Dupree, always good to see you. Thank you.